little bit about me. So I'm a linguist. I studied linguistics, uh, proud Gator and Badger, and now I'm working with a speech recognition company here in Portland, Sensory. And I wanted to get to talk because I really just love how weird and diverse the sounds of the world's languages are. I think it's really fun to see how much variety is out there. And then on the language learning side, I've always enjoyed learning languages and dabbling and in this and that. And I think having a little bit of linguistics training really helps you with that. Um, Sort of the idea of a little knowledge can be dangerous in a positive sense. Like you have to find the right aphorism. But a little bit of knowledge about how languages work can really aid people in learning languages. Um, so the normal language learning route is you have, you know, books, videos, teachers, and to make the sounds that they're saying, you just listen to them and you imitate. And you start out badly and you keep imitating, and then after a while, you approach what the instructor is saying, and you get better at it. You get more fluent. I There's rarely explicit instruction on how to make the sounds of the language that you're learning, and I think that's really a missed opportunity. I think a better approach would be if students had some instruction where they can understand what's being said and how it's being said, and then they can imitate it with that knowledge behind them. They can train their ear to pick up on these subtleties that they might not know even exist without explicit instruction. If you're hearing a language from across the world you've never even heard of, how are you going to know exactly where your tongue goes and your teeth go and everything? It's simply not realistic. So I think a really good way to do that would be to introduce students, introduce anyone really interested in language learning to IPA, the International Phonetic Alphabet. Before we get started, I wanted to do a brief history lesson. So this is, sorry, let me get my screen going. This is the International Phonetic Alphabet was founded in Paris, 1886, by the Phonetic Teachers Association. You can see they were already interested in trying to write things phonetically and avoiding language-specific writing. Thankfully, they didn't stick with this style. It looks really weird. I have a funny anecdote. I have seen very old phonetics journals written all in IPA. So to read it, you read English written in IPA, and it is the strangest, most confusing thing ever. So the association was founded originally to teach foreign language pronunciation. And this is an example. This is their 1904 chart. So this is their first English language chart. They had one previously in 1900, but it was in French. So it goes to be a little more friendly. And we're gonna walk through this slightly because it's a good example of what's coming. So for this, they are mainly focused on the Indo-European languages, and we have consonants, vowels. So for the consonants, along the top, they're talking about places of articulation, points along your vocal tract where you're having a connection or restriction to produce sounds. So it's going back to front here. Something they're called bronchs, meaning the back of your throat, something in your throat, your uvula, the back of your mouth, roughly the front of your mouth, roughly, and then the very front, your tongue point. And then they have things along this axis of how the airflow is changing. So whether the airflow is stopped, whether you have air going through your nasal cavity, whether you're obstructing your mouth, so air is coming out through the side, if you are making your tongue trill, flip up and down, and whether you just have sort of a your tongue pushed up in your mouth, not making contact, but deforming the air to that's coming out. And then for vowels, uh, similarly, they have it sort of separated into back and front. This is about where the mass of your tongue is located, and then how open or closed your mouth and jaw are. So we have closed and back. This symbol we use to represent an ideal oo sound. Oh, I totally forgot to mention. Um, if anyone wants to unmute themselves and say funny sounds along with me, I really recommend it. It's very fun. It helps everyone loosen up a bit. So we have an ooh here. And you can feel if you go ooh ooh ooh, you can feel your tongue. Oh, it's kind of in the back there, and your lips, your mouth, they're kind of together. Ooh, as opposed to if we go down here. So this would be open and front. Okay, so let me open my mouth bunch. Ah.
Hey Nick, I use this in vocalist as a singer, so A-E-I-O-U, like the I don't know if it translates the same, but those kind of vowel sounds.
I don't know what you're saying. What do you
Oh,
mean?
so like as a vocalist, so when I'm doing singing, I don't know if you use the same methods, but I think you do, like the vowel sounds.
Hmm. Yeah. That's a good point. So a lot of these symbols are going to look familiar, and they probably mean what you think. Others don't. Um, English orthography is a bit wonky, and so you can't always trust that it's going to sound the way you sound, the way you think. If you know Spanish, it'll be a little more make a little more sense. So uh, we're going to do vowels in a moment. I just wanted to give you a quick layout of things before we get into the current chart. So this is the 1904 chart. So since then, it's been being revised for well, up to 2020 is the current revision. Right now, it's about every year or so they do little little revisions. The last new symbol added was in 2005, I believe. But it all follows the same principle of art, articulatory points, manner of articulation, how air is being changed in your mouth, and then for vowels, how open or closed, and positions along the tongue that are causing the most deformation of air. So this is 1904. The current chart is huge. It's very big. There's a bunch. There's a bunch going on. We are just going to be focusing on three sections. Um, the vowels. They separated out. It's no longer all combined. So the vowels here, the consonants, the plain consonants up here, and then we're gonna have a little bit of fun at the end with some clicks. Uh, Let me check my note here. So yeah, this is the current release version. We're not going to go over all of it, I promise, but I really recommend pulling up Wikipedia afterwards and checking it out. There's a lot of cool stuff. A lot of it is on simply modifying existing sounds to to to, to clarify exactly how they're being said in some language for, let's say, documentation purposes or laboratory descriptions. before we get started on the vowels, I do want to do a quick foray into anatomy. Um, so make sure we have some points of reference here. And I am going to have to pull out some Latin vocabulary because linguists, we love pulling in Latin sometimes. So vocal tract, we've all got it, got a mouth. Let's learn a bit about it. You have your lips. You can use those to make some sounds. We tend to call those bilabial sounds because you're using your two lips. You have your teeth. You can use those to make sounds. You have your tongue, of course, and that can move all over the place. It can go between your teeth to make things like thick and thin and the. It can be pushed back towards the back of your throat. Behind your top teeth is a special little bump. I'm sure you can feel it. It's called the alveolar ridge. Can everyone feel it?
Yeah.
You use that to make a lot of sounds. We call those alveolar sounds. Above that, we have the hard palate here. Going a bit further back, we have the soft palate. We also call it the velum. Those are for making sounds like k and g, k k k, g g g. If you make those repeatedly, you'll feel your tongue hitting the soft palate. Under that, you have the dangly bit. Like when you look in your mouth when you yawn, the dangly thing is called the uvula. Great word. Going further back, we have a special name for the back of the throat called the pharynx. That's for making certain sounds that show up in primarily Arabic and other Semitic languages. And then down here, we have the kind of the star of the show in some ways, the glottis and the vocal folds. This is used for changing what's called voicing. If you hold your hand to your throat and you say like a snake, you don't feel anything. You're just hearing the hiss. If you say z, like you're sleeping, you're gonna feel a very strong vibration. What that is enough airflow going through your vocal folds to make them thwack together. And that's a very big distinction in languages, and we call that voicing. So S is a unvoiced sound, and Z is a voiced sound. So the big picture here is really, it really just comes down to three things. The sounds are voiced or voiceless. There's going to be some constriction going on in your mouth. So some of these parts are going to be coming together to change the airflow. To change the airflow. That was my third part.
I think there's one more. There's snoring. Yeah, I've studied this a little bit, and there's so many parts to that. So it's just kind of interesting in the sounds that we make. That's one of my sounds.
Yeah, I have a magnet that I keep in the office. Maybe I'll get my magnet back someday. It says something like will produce aggressive voice nasal trills for food. I'm a linguist. Don't try this at home. And the little symbol they came up with looks like a little pig's nose, and it's a little winking sound. Yeah, it's pretty wild. There's a lot of points of constriction here that we can use. So okay, let's start with something a little simple. Just get a feel for the parameters we're dealing with. Let's start with vowels. So vowels, you just have you have airflow coming out, and you're moving your tongue around a bit. You're not having contact, not having enough contact to cause turbulence, to cause hissing, and you're not having enough to stop stop airflow. This is a big chart. I cannot make all the sounds. I'll be honest with you. But having a few reference points really makes it easier to find how to produce sounds that you want for your target language. Let me check my notes here. Yeah, so let's look at these. Let's look at these axes. So our diagram here of the person mimics the vowel diagram. This is meant to be sort of an impressionistic side view of a mouth. So here we have the back and the front, and close and open. So this is the jaw being very open, jaw being very close, the tongue being causing a restriction towards the front of the mouth and towards the back of the mouth. So our reference points here are all going to be pretty familiar. So we use the I symbol to represent the vowel E, C, and if you hold that, if you hold E, you can feel that your tongue is very close to your alveolar ridge. Maybe it's even touching it a bunch. And obviously your mouth is very close and it's your tongue is very forward. If we go back here, all the way back to this, we use to represent ooh. Your mouth is still close together, but your tongue, the mass of your tongue is now pulled back. So the constriction is more towards the back of your throat. An extra distinction we have listed here, you can see it says vowels at the right and left are rounded and unrounded. So we have some point, let's say this. So we have E. So that the E is unrounded. That means our lips are not round. They're not in a U sort of O shape. So let's say we want to make the sound. I don't know how offhand, but I know this. I know this is E. It's unrounded. Okay, maybe if I hold that constriction and I try to round my lips. So E. Oh. Ooh. Okay. I'm rounding. I have my mouth very closed, and I have my tongue towards the front. So I'm going from E to U. So the cool thing about the vowel diagram is that with a few reference points, we can use that to approach new sounds and understand that, oh, in this language, it's saying it has this sound. Well, I know this one close to it, and I can change my constriction slightly to approach that, knowing that that's what I'm actually trying to approach. I'm not simply imitating what a teacher says. I'm imitating them with that knowledge of the target. And let's get the other axes just to make sure it's clear. So so E, U, A. So very back, very open, very back, A. And then kind of a front A, and A. So these are all going to be pretty familiar from English. E, A, A. And something to keep in mind is that these are idealizations. So these are not, no language is going to have exactly this. And if we give a symbol for a language, there's always going to be some variation, just from, you know, people talk. It's a biological process. There's always variation there. Are there any questions for now? I realize I'm throwing a lot of information out there. The idea is that a little bit of it will stick, and it'll be useful.
Yeah, Nick, can you self-teach your stuff this, or do you need a linguistics coach, or what's the best way to learn these? Is like, how do you get feedback whether you're doing it right?
Yeah, you can teach yourself. I don't think you need a linguistics coach. You definitely need videos and diagrams and loudspeakers, let's say. I think between seeing the articulation, so seeing diagrams like this, and there are a lot of video diagrams out there that will go at the same time, where you can hear the sound, see the articulation, and then you can imitate it. I think you can teach yourself this pretty easily, just with a bit of repetition, frankly. The hardest part might be getting used to the symbols, really. But after a while, you know, for example, if I were to see this I don't know, fat bee looking thing, if I just saw that in isolation, I wouldn't know what it is. I don't I don't have them all memorized offhand anymore. But seeing it in context, I can piece together the rough articulation of it. So I think people can definitely teach themselves. It just takes a bit of attention and then practice. Yeah.
And are you going to get to a part where you talk about how it translates to different languages? Like,
Funny you should ask. Yeah. So this is meant to show all the symbols.
yeah,
If you want to see for an individual language, I have some right here. Some vowel diagrams around the world.
oh, cool.
Cantonese, Lebanese Arabic, and Sipu from Nigeria. You're never going to have a language with all of those vowels. They're always, it's going to be a smattering of things. And something I've always found interesting is that there's going to be a spread of them. So you're not going to have all high, close vowels represented and then nothing else. There's always going to be something at the front, something at the back, something at the top, something at the bottom, to round out the space.
Now, may I
Sorry, yeah?
have a question?
Yeah.
Now, looking at the chart, the Nigeria seems to be simpler. Does it mean that it's easier to pronounce the language? Or?
Not necessarily. You might have a relatively simple vowel system and a very complex consonant system. Also, these are unmodified, so you may have more things going on. So ideally you have these, but then in practice you may have a lot of processes that cause modifications, like to nasalize the vowels or lengthen or shorten them, or you may have a tone system. So there's always more axes available to do variation.
Thank you.
Yeah, but I guess that is a good point, though, because there are languages that have really big vowel systems, like Danish has very complicated, has a lot of things very, very similar, at least to my English ears. And it can make it very hard to acquire as a second language. So I mean, having a simpler vowel system definitely helps in some ways. Yeah, and I just wanted to show an example of this because one cool thing is if you go on Wikipedia or anything, any language you want to search for, you can find a vowel diagram like this that will show the 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 rough vowels for the languages.
Nick, have you heard about the theory that certain vowel sounds are associated with things closer to the speaker, like across languages? So like me and I and this compared to you and those. Is that like junk science, or is there any like truth in that?
I have no idea. I haven't heard that one.
Okay, yeah.
That's new to me.
Yeah, if
That's
you
really cool.
look at some examples from different languages, it does seem to hold like ooh and those like rounded sounds, the U's and the O's do seem to refer to things far from the speaker. And those
Mm,
like tight vowels like E and me and
mhm.
this and like souci in French and este
Yeah,
in Spanish, they all seem to group together.
yeah.
But of course
Huh.
it could be confirmation bias. I don't know if there's any science behind it.
That's really cool. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's definitely an empirical question. Just yeah. So I guess it would be the vowels in the pronouns versus what person are being used. Neat.
Yeah.
Nick,
I
this is
mean,
Michael Wild. One of my most frustrating languages experience was Chinese, and
mhm,
that was when I went to China a long time ago. I learned that the transliteration was actually in Dutch, not English, and so nothing made any sense to me anytime because I had to pronounce the transliteration in Dutch, which I didn't know how to speak, and so I've been. After that, I kind of gave up on these kind of charts and things, but I'm glad to see there's at least some one that isn't Dutch.
yes, this is meant to be This is universal. Um, Obviously, it came out of a Indo-European context, so a lot of sounds map to sort of reference phonemes in Indo-European languages. And yeah, it can be very hard learning a unique transliteration system like Pinyin or Wei Jiao's. I've had that problem at work, frankly, when I've had to read Pinyin and I have to pull up a guide. I have no idea what that means offhand because um, unique uh, ways of writing things have been around forever. We've always been trying to find a, a standard here. It looks like we have a bunch of stuff in the chat or something.
Yeah, we have a question in the chat. You'd be able to.
Let me pull that up. Did charge match previous slide? Like close. Yes, yes. This is the same layout. Oh, go Gators! Nice. I saw that. Thank you. um, oh, yes. This is the same layout as before. Front, back, close, open. I left off the axes. Excuse me. But yeah, I think getting a feel for the boundaries of the vowels can be very helpful. Let's move on to the big one.
I have a question.
Yes.
So just because it just came silly to my mind. So do we have I noticed that you saw Arabic Lebanon there. And so I was wondering if is there a different chart, English, English Portland, English Baltimore, for instance? Yeah.
There might be, there's definitely charts out there for different different US English accents, different UK English accents, etc. Definitely. The one of the interesting issues is that we have a lot of phonological processes to deal with, a lot of ways that the sounds can change. Like if I go down south and I'm talking to friends and they start talking about sorry, actually, excuse me. I'm thinking about mergers we have in English, like pin and hen, like a little pointy thing versus a writing thing. I can't make that distinction very well. But we have vowels that that it changes the meaning of words, and sometimes some speakers of the same language we'll have different different vowels for the same word there. I think I got a little bit off your question. What was it again?
I'm fine. Just move on.
Okay. Yeah, so that's a consonants. Here's the big one. A lot of weird symbols here. Some we recognize. Let's go over the axis to make sure we all have the same reference here. We're bringing back the Latin. I apologize. So this is again looking at a face pointed left, bilabial. So these are the lips. So this whole top row are places of articulation along from the front to the back. Bilabio, labiodental. So these are sounds made with your tongue and teeth connecting. So for example, F and V, F and V. You can feel that your bottom lip is touching your top teeth and you're blowing air out. Dental sounds that are made with your teeth. Like we use these symbols to represent the and the, like thick and then. Your tongue is going between your teeth. And again, you see that that voicing distinction I was talking about. The, not voiced, but the voiced again. You have that vibration in your glottis. Alveolar sounds, you're touching your alveolar ridge. A little bit after your alveolar ridge, your post-alveolar sounds, like we use these to represent sh and zh.
Hey, you've got a note in the chat, Nick.
Yeah, it says, I noticed this chart doesn't include the or fa. It doesn't account for sounds made with 2 letters.
Yeah, so ideally we want one symbol to one sound. So the and the in English we represent those both as th, and it's confusing and can be annoying. So instead in IPA we use a theta, and this is called ed. It comes from Norse and Icelandic. And then, for example, with this sh and zh is a classically hard thing to represent in English. People usually write zh. So we try to stick to one symbol, one sound, which means we have to use a bunch of weird symbols, but it also means that there's less ambiguity about the sound we're referring to. Going a little further back, this is not exactly a place. This is how we change the tongue, retroflex. Your tongue is slightly up and rolled over and back a little bit. We see this a lot in languages like Hindi and Urdu. So instead of a plain ta, your tongue will be rolled up a little to make more of a ka. Palatal sounds, your tongue is being pushed up towards your hard palate. An example from English would be ya, so that you can feel ya. The mass of your tongue is going up towards your palate. Velar sounds, you're touching your soft palate or your velum. These are exemplified in things like k and g. You can feel your tongue hitting that. Uvular sounds, this is hitting your uvula. We don't have any of these in English generally. Maybe in passing we get some, but as for key components of the language, these show up all over the place. But a good reference is the French R. It's a uvular R, or gargling is a uvular sound. So the French R would be like you have contact between the back of your tongue and your uvula. And then pharyngeal sounds, so these are your tongue really being retracted, pushed back towards the back of your throat. These are pretty rare, but they do show up, especially in Arabic and some other Semitic languages. They're hard to make, frankly, if you're not. Yep.
Yeah, just want to give a short time check. We got about 4 or 5 minutes, if that's okay. I don't know how much you have left.
Oh, wow. Okay. I really got it. Okay. Yeah, let me jump ahead. Yeah, so I just love talking about IPS so much, I lost track of time. Yes, so let me go over the other axis and then we're pretty cool. So the other axis is stops. These are where airflow is stopped, like p, b, t, d, things like that, making enough contact to stop airflow. Nasals, these are where you're stopping airflow and it's going, it's exiting through your nasal cavity. So they're coming out. Trill is again where your tongue is flapping and hitting your the articulator. What we call a flap is where you have like a very quick stop, just a little one to form airflow. Fricatives, you see we have the full complement here. These are turbulent sounds, so you have enough airflow to enough contact to restrict airflow, and it makes a hissing sound. Like we have f and v, the etc. Laterals have a mass of tongue in the middle and air flows around it. Approximants, like this is actually the English R, are they're hard to even call vowels, but they excuse me, they're hard to even call consonants. Sometimes you call them semivowels. They have just enough constriction to deform airflow, but they do have some connection involved. And then lateral approximants, these are basically the same thing, but air is going out around the sides of the tongue, like the English la la la. Just to see a couple. Oh, where's my? There you go. See something just in context. I pulled up a language, languages, their own chart. This you can see there's a lot of things involved, and there's a lot of more variations we can include, extra diacritics and connections, and sorry, I was checking the time. And what just rounded out something really fun, which is clicks. So these are real sounds that really show up in real languages. It's not just when you're telling people to be quiet and saying. Just wanted to show this off. We have, we can make them in English, but they aren't real parts of our languages. Just wanted to show off a few things because we have 5 main clicks, bilabial, so using your lips to go like a kissy sound. We have tisk tisk, the horse trotting sound, I like to call it. This one, palate alveolar, so you have your tongue hitting your palate and your alveolar ridge, and you make like a. And then this is the giddy up sound. I can't actually make it. I know a lot of people can though. My wife can. Like a. Can't do it. But I want to share some examples just of this in context because it's really interesting, and a lot of people don't realize that they are, first class consonants in a language. So I put up a language here called Amkoe, and the word for two is has a bilabial click, so kissy sound. Is two, and here Hadza from Tanzania, la and then a post-alveolar sound, so the horse sound, and then o, so la for to trip. Thought that'd be cool.
Yeah, thank you, Nick.
Cool thing to show. Yeah, and that was it. I just wanted to pull up the chart again and ask if there were any questions. I had to race a little bit through this to the consonants. Sorry.
Yeah, we can do a few more minutes if you guys want to do some questions. And you feel free to put them in the
I don't
chat.
have a question, but I just wanted to say it was fantastic, and I'm very interested in pursuing it.
Cool. Yeah, it's a lot of fun to learn. There's a lot of weird sounds out there.
I had a question, Nick. The empty spaces in the chart that you currently have up, the
Mm-hmm.
consonants, does that mean we haven't found any languages where that combination exists, or it's?
Yeah, so the empty white cells are possible, but not found. And then the shaded cells are deemed impossible. Yeah, for example, this flap, this labia dental flap, the V with a little hook. I think that was added in 2005. It was discovered. It was documented well enough, and they added it in. Yeah, it's always surprising. Yeah, then the rest of the chart is a bunch more interesting things like double articulations, symbols for describing tone systems, symbols for talking about different airflow versions, and slight modifications to change bass sounds. Yeah.
Nick, a question about comparative pronunciations, or I'll use that word. So if you're, for instance, in all the tribe languages of India, or even the American version of Indians, do you see that the languages next door are vastly far apart, or are they? Do you see them as versions of the same? So you know, how far do they evolve away from each other in effect?
Frankly, it's an empirical question. So there's lots of times where you have neighboring groups who speak different languages and different language families. A really good example of this is the Basque language in southern France, northern Spain. It's what we call a language isolate. We don't know where it came from. It doesn't appear to be related to any other language known, yet it's spoken there among, surrounded by Indo-European languages. So you can't always assume that, the thing next door is going to be similar to what's spoken. Yeah.
Thank you. I was just curious about that.
Yeah, good question.
Thank you, Nick. I think we're going to have to wrap it up.
Cool.
I'm sure that you would be willing to do questions later if people had some.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.